Hi everyone, hope you all are keeping safe and still giving your best in the fight against COVID-19. People, in this quick video, I'm going to describe how you can help with dataset curation for COVID-19 Universal Knowledge Graph. The first step is to choose a research paper from our data source, which is WHO COVID-19 database. This database contains research papers from multiple sources, and there are around 50,000 of them. To be more precise, 54,146 as of today, and these research papers are from multiple sources, as you can see. You may choose a research paper of your like, and the one which I'll be using for data for this demo will be this. The next step is to open a data curation form. So in this form, you will be actually filling the results of your data curation. There are other fields which you have to fill. The first one is COVID WHO ID, which is actually this. So when you look at a research paper, below the research paper name and authors, you have the COVID WHO ID present. So you will choose this COVID WHO ID and put it here. So as you can see, this is an autocomplete field. The idea behind keeping this as autocomplete is most of you might not like to fill all the information related to the research paper, as in the content of the research paper, all at once. You might want to do it over the next couple of days. So you might like to resubmit the form again and again. So if you have already submitted the form once, you will be able to select back that ID, the paper name and authors from the autocomplete. However, if you are filling an ID here and you see as already part of autocomplete, even though you haven't worked on it, then you shouldn't select it, because that means somebody else has already worked on it. For example, if you happen to enter this and this was present as in the autocomplete field, then you shouldn't select it because somebody else, that's me here, has worked on it. So this is your paper ID. Next you have your name. So I mean, for example, your name could be something, whatever. You enter your name, and you have the research paper title. So as of now, 3 titles are shown up here. These are the research papers which I worked on. In this case, this is this. I just added there. And then you have the authors, which you have to fill. Here we go. So now you have the source, relation, and target triplets which are required to be filled. Let me illustrate that through an example. What I show here is a research paper for which I have done data curation. Actually, I have done data curation, manual data curation for 3 research papers. And this is one of them. I just showed the names in the graph in this form. And let me illustrate what actually we are trying to get from here. So the idea is to extract as many relevant fields, as much relevant data from this research paper, and put it in our knowledge graph in the form of nodes and vertices, nodes and edges. And we have to ensure that we don't miss out anything that is pertinent to COVID-19 or other diseases that are related to COVID-19. We capture all aspects related to COVID-19, because that way our knowledge graph will be comprehensive. But it doesn't mean that we have to capture each and every sentence and present it as a node in the knowledge graph, elements related to it as a node in the knowledge graph. Let me illustrate that through an example. So in this research paper, when you read the first line, you have the first line is, the current global pandemic COVID-19 caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus has already inflicted surmountable damage both to the human lives and global economy. Now, yes, this line contains 2 important pieces of information. So it tells you that COVID-19 is identified as a pandemic and COVID-19 is caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus. And so these 2 are important things which will actually go and curate as part of our data set. So as you can see here, my first line is COVID-19. This is identified as a pandemic. The status is a pandemic. This is what I add from my own side as a description, as a relation. And the next thing is, this is caused by SARS-CoV-2. So you identify this as the causative virus. Now, please note that the source and the target will be present in your research paper. They may be present directly, or you may have to actually extract phrases, modify them, tweak them a bit. But relations will be something that you will have to add as per your understanding, and it's important to do this exercise carefully. Going further, we have in this very paragraph, we don't have much useful information which we might like to add to our research paper. This is generic stuff. This is kind of abstract, and the author describes what he'll be discussing in this research paper. So when you go to introduction, these are certain figures which are not relevant. And then we come to a fact that this COVID-19 was designated as such by World Health Organization. So this is another important uh, attribute related to COVID-19. Important as in, because the World Health Organization would be dealing with different other diseases. They would have their own mechanisms. So it's important to capture this information as part of a comprehensive knowledge graph. So I add that this COVID-19 was designated so by World Health Organization. So World Health Organization was the organization which designated this disease, and I added its full form as well. Similarly, when you go further, you have the full form of SARS-CoV-2 specified here. So I add data. And these are simple relationships, full form relationships, which I added. So if you didn't have the full form specified, you wouldn't need to add them. Just keep what is present in the research paper, just add what is present in the research paper. Here you have an important fact that the management strategy for this disease, because there is no definite drug or vaccine available as of now, is aimed at creating the symptoms. So this is an important information related to COVID-19. I add it as part of my dataset, a COVID-19 management strategy aimed at creating symptoms in absence of absolute drugs or vaccine, absolute definitive drugs or vaccine. And similarly, I go on. So if you see in this second paragraph, you don't have actually stuff which you might like to add in the research paper, in the data set. So this is kind of generic. However, when you go to the next paragraph, you actually find a lot of useful information that there have been other pandemics which have been caused by coronaviruses like SARS and MERS, and you describe how they are similar and to COVID-19 and how they are dissimilar and how coronaviruses are classified. So all this information is put up here in the form of source, relation, and targets. So for any one of you who will be helping in curation, I wish every one of you to do it. I would recommend you to go through this curation once. It is not meant to be foolproof. However, the idea is you can actually get a sense of the whole exercise from here. And I don't say it's comprehensive. So when you yourself read the research paper, you may be able to make out some other relationship which is present, but has not been explicitly mentioned by me here, and which may nevertheless be important. So I would like you to look at it from that perspective too. Let me now demonstrate how you'll add these relationships as part of the knowledge graph. For that, I'll actually take up the research paper we took up earlier, which was this. Because for my research paper, I have already added the relationship, so that won't help. I'll open the full text of the research paper. Sure. So this research paper is titled as Cold Chain in COVID-19 and Outbreak New Use. And while you could start from abstract and recent findings and summary, I would advise you to start from introduction, because abstract and summary are kind of generic. And generally, I've seen it helps starting from the introduction, because once you do the introduction and other important sections, then you pretty much find it has already been taken care of. The abstract and the summary have already been taken care of. So when you come to the introduction, you find a reference to COVID-19, its full form, coronavirus disease COVID-19. So what you do is, this source, relation, and target nodes are actually autocomplete nodes. So if you want to fill about COVID-19, you will already find it there. Just choose it from there, don't add it from your own side. So the spellings may differ a bit, that will create confusion. We have to ensure that the nodes are actually the same. Internally, they are the same. And you have the full form for this specified as coronavirus disease 2019. So you might expect that this may as well be present in my database, because this is information which would be present everywhere. And this is true for this case, because we have reference to COVID-19 at multiple places. So you have COVID-19 disease, sorry, it's coronavirus disease. The full form is coronavirus disease. That's why I wasn't getting it. Coronavirus disease 2019. So this was already added as part of a previous research paper. However, you never know whether this is actually a single triplet or it was part of some other sentence. So you could add it. There's no harm actually. And The other relationship is for SARS-CoV-2. Similarly, you could add that here, SARS-CoV-2 full form, and this one. So you would actually get it in the autocomplete fields also. So it's easier to add. However, you have other information which is new, and the new information is here. So this is again a bit generic. So the new information here is that they are talking about certain drugs and therapies, and they say that there is insufficient clinical data to either recommend for them or against them. So this is the important thing which you could mention. So for example, you can talk about chloroquine. You could add one more note to this, and this will be related to, you could add multiple nodes. So the node which you add related to chloroquine would be, I'm trying to copy paste. Yes. So this is this was already present. So you can select it from auto select option, from autocomplete option, and this will ensure that spelling and other stuff is same. And now the relation which you have to enter is that this is there is insufficient clinical data to recommend either for or against this. So this is basically a recommendation with respect to COVID-19, whether this is recommended or not. So you can try searching for recommendation, and you'll see there are plenty of edges related to recommendation, but we have to consider COVID-19, so we choose this. And it talks about that there is insufficient clinical data. So I don't think this will be present in the database. So this will be something which you will have to enter as of now. And you will actually have to maintain completeness. So it is insufficient clinical data to recommend, except in case of a clinical trial. To recommend or not, except in the case of clinical trial. And because this research paper is for, this was published on July 18, so you mentioned the date as well, because who knows, these drugs may as well have been ratified. So it's important to add the date. So whenever you mention any such status, it's important to add the date for it. Good. And similarly, you can add one more relationship and do the same for hydrochloroquine or maybe covalent plasma. So for all these, you need to be able to, you should be doing that. Because at the end of the day, these are different drugs and each of them will have other relationships. So you will add it for hydrochloroquine, and the same thing you can copy paste from there and add. Going further, we have important stuff like important new stuff like colchicine is made from preparations of the meadow saffron, colchicum autumnale. So you'll actually copy this, and because this was not already taken up in any of the previous research papers, I don't have it as part of my data set. So this is a new, this is not part of an autocomplete category, and you know that this is actually made from here. So this is the source. Colchicum autumnale is the source for it. So you'll mention the relationship as source. Source is present here, and you'll mention the name of the entity, which is colchicum autumnale, and then you'll add further node, and after that you'll go to the description. So this is actually meadow saffron, and when you, so what is this meadow saffron? So let's see what they talk about colchicum autumnale. Meadow saffron is not a kind of an adjective, but when you see this, you see that this is known as this colchicum autumnale is known as meadow saffron. So that's another important relationship which you could add. So this is meadow saffron is just another name for colchicum autumnale, and so you could just add it as also known as. So also known as is a very frequently used phrase. That's why I just added it here just like that, and add the relationship for it, the corresponding relationship. So it is meadow saffron. This is known as meadow saffron. Fine. Now I go to the next relationship, which is that it has been used over 2000 years as a poison and is a remedy for gout flares. So this is the use of it. So, well, and use of what? Use of cold chicken. Uh, you mentioned the name of the drug and then its use. And while you would mention each one of them one by one, I would like to mention this for gout flares because then I'll be able to show another relationship here. One thing which I missed, which when I talked about data curation here, is there are plenty of cases where you'll actually have full sentences, or if not full sentences, clauses or phrases rather than just a few words, because those would be cases where you actually need to talk about the entire conditions, and it's important to have them all as part of a consolidated statement or a clause. For example, in this case, when I talk about coronavirus transcription, the characteristic of it, I mentioned production of multiple subgenomic RNAs containing sequences corresponding to both genomic ends. And because this has information which is, this contains terms which may not be quite generic, which may be nodes by themselves. So I extract those terms as in genome and RNA, and I have a linked to relationship for all these cases. So what I wanted to demonstrate was you have, this is a remedy used as a remedy for 2000 years for gout flares. So what you would do is, let me take this up, used for over 2000 years as a remedy for gout flares. You will actually break it up into two relationships, one for poison and the other was for gout flares. I'm just showing it for gout flares because I want to show the LinkedIn thing, LinkedIn stuff. So you have this here and you have it pasted here. Did I copy it? Well, yes. So this is as a remedy for gout flares. Good. And this is, you make it capital. Good. Now, finally, what you do is you have to add this relationship related to gout flares, and well, they don't talk further about gout flares, so you will just add it just like that. Link to gout flares. Sorry, it's gout flares. Sorry for the mispronunciation. You go and add more fields, and what you see here is they are talking about the configuration of colchicine. It was determined in 1955 and it was identified as this. All right, so well, you could add two relationships. One is that configuration, colchicine configuration determined in 1955, and the other more interesting would be that it was identified as a neutral lipophilic tricyclic alkaloid. So this is an interesting, this is a useful piece of information which you might like to add. So you would just add, first of all, you would take up colchicine. And then this is, we are actually talking about this, which is kind of the chemical form of it. So our relationship specified as chemical form. This would have come in some previous research paper as well. And the form is this. Sorry. So this is a chemical form for it. And suppose you wanted to submit just this and come back to the next thing later, for the further things later, then you just submit here. And these are submitted. So when you come back, when you reload, you'll find that the stuff which you added, as in this, it's now here. I mean, your name is, it's not part of the autocomplete, so you still need to write it again. I don't think it's advised to keep it out. So I already filled it, so it's coming. Otherwise, this is not an autocomplete field. This is from my browser, not from the autocomplete, as in from the database. So you add your name. And you can select your research, the paper title and the corresponding authors. So they were these, and you could further go on adding the respective notes. So for example, you might like to add that this neutral, this contains these three chemicals. So now that you anyway simulated, this is a part of your data set, and you would be able to choose it from the autocomplete field also. Yes, and you can mention that the features are this. So you don't have feature word here, so you can add it as a feature, and you can add a feature term there, and you can add these main features which are discussed here to this. Just make it as capital, and so you can add more relations and then submit again. So this is a pretty long document. My request to you would be, you take it say 15 to 20 minutes at a time, add the notes to the graph, submit them, take it up maybe some half a day later or 1 day later, whenever you find some time, and do it this way, so that you will be able to finish this exercise over the next couple of days. So this will be the way in which you will be able to curate, to help with data curation for the COVID-19 knowledge graph. I would like to share this to all your friends so that we are able to do data curation for the entire set of research papers quickly. The challenge in automating is, as you can see from the content, there are plenty of sentences which are actually complex. There are relationships which span across multiple paragraphs and need to be extracted by doing analysis. And it's not just extracting subject, verb, and predicate. It's extracting phrases which are connected to one another, and other intuitive stuff of that kind. So when you read it, you realize what is worthy of extracting. You also realize what is not worthy of extracting, and you leave it here. Herein comes the importance of manual curation. So thanks a lot for hearing me out. I sincerely request you to help me with the static curation. If you're able to complete the static curation exercise fairly quickly, we shall be able to actually design the platform way fast. I mean, much more fast. And I strongly believe this can go a long way in helping our researchers and scientists in coming up with better solutions to COVID-19. So it would help them, possibly it can help them find out relevant drugs or other mechanisms, or maybe help in the design of vaccines which are related to COVID-19. One thing which I missed was, you have in these research papers some very interesting stuff. So people talk about different strategies which they think may help in COVID-19 and in tackling COVID-19, and those strategies may have not been tried, but they are nevertheless important. They are suggested. So in fact, I have added a node in this research papers, and that node is potential strategy against COVID-19. So suppose in this research paper, they mentioned that colchicine has these features which potentially make it a very good drug against COVID-19, but nobody has tried it. Then you could add it as a potential strategy. There are research papers which talk about how particular targets, particular molecular structures could be used as targets. There are research papers which talk about how their research can help in development of vaccines. So all this is information which you wouldn't find just as a simple statement. You would be, once you read it, you would find that people have actually given some ideas, which then you can actually add under this node of potential strategy against COVID-19. So once we are able to collect these all and establish their connections with the other entities related to COVID-19, I think it will help us, it will go a long way in finding solutions to COVID-19. Thanks very much. Jai Hind.